Just a quote for you. All right, all right. Good afternoon, good day, everybody. Haki Ami here, Success Scholar. Thank you for tuning in. It's a beautiful day. Wanted to take some time to have this discussion with this great brother. I've known him for quite some time. Confidence Chi Zero OKK. Chi Zero OKK. So, brother down in Florida, and he's been doing some tremendous work and with the UNIA, of course. And so I want him to share that work. And of course, many people are aware that tomorrow actually is World Africa Day. So we are going to, allow for him to, just add just what did Garvey mean for Africa, for instance, and his role, his interpretation being African uh, from Nigeria, right, brother?
Nigeria, yep, Biafra region.
So, let me just define. You are a conscious Pan African revolutionary Nigerian. So I don't want to, just want everybody to know that. So just in case, because people, we got to distinguish the different types of Africans that we are meeting, as well as Black Americans, or however that we meet. To say that this brother is conscious and aware is an understatement. So I'll just let him go and, and introduce himself. And I apologize, everybody, for the lighting. It's a little, it's a little. I'm a little here, but so hopefully we'll try to get that a little fixed. But yeah. So just open up, brother. You've been, in the struggle on the front lines for. That's too bright. Let me see. It's okay. It's better like that. All right. But so just open up, brother. Just share a little bit in terms of your work that you were doing, as a Pan-Africanist in the working on the in the Florida area, of course. But Africa Day is coming up. So just open up and talk a little bit about that.
All right. First off, I want to thank you for having me here. It's been a long time coming. Mm-hmm. I think you go back at least close to 10 years on the YouTube streets. So we didn't have StreamYard back in the day, but you were always one of those guys promoting Amos Wilson. And he seemed to have a simple message, just create a African-American organization, but we try to do it. It's not as easy as it sounds. But yeah, my background is my family came from Nigeria, the part that had the Civil War. The Berlin Conference affected people in Africa different ways, and we're one of the people who ended up having a civil war. When we went to war, we had the Marcus Garvey red, black, and green flag. So there's always been that Garveyism in the background. But yeah, I moved down here. Uh-oh. You still there?
I'm here. No, go. You good. I gave you the full screen.
Okay. All right.
I gave you the full screen, brother, so people can see.
Yeah. I was raised in California.
Okay.
Suburban area. Born in LA, but moved out to suburbs pretty early. My family, we always had like African. I don't know how you'd say we have our own like sub nation within the Igbo language. We have our own nation. We have our own like clans. So I was always raised in that environment where we had our own organization. And then you start reading about Black history here and how organization was a big struggle. So I said, growing up, when I started reading, get into Amos Wilson, I said, let me try and see if I could recreate this or help recreate this. So it's been a long time, but it led me to the UNIA-ACL, where UNIA-ACL had a structure that allowed for things like cultural organizations and societies to be integrated into it. So I said, let me try and do it. I've been trying to do it for about 3 years, but we're starting to make a little bit of progress. I have some meetings coming up, but we're pretty excited going forward. Baltimore just started a division. So we're going to try to cover the four corners of the USA, get in South America, get into CARICOM. We're trying to basically bring that Amos Wilson vision of organization and, you know, closed societies where people are vetted and they start growing in power. So we're going to try and connect that to Africa everybody under the UNIA banner, UNIACL. It's hard, but we're going to try and do it.
Right. So let me lay out something. So I'm sort of just so people know, just a little bit about this Africa Day. Africa Day was formerly and I'm reading from Wikipedia, but and people can speak on that. But formerly African Freedom Day or African Liberation Day, and says it's the annual commemoration of the foundation or Organization of African Unity on May 25th, 1963. And it's celebrated in various countries on the African continent as well as around the world. And the organization was transformed into the African Union on July 9th, 2002 in Durban. But generally it's celebrated on the 25th of May every year. So, but the first Congress of Independent States was held in Accra, Ghana, and that was in 1958. It was convened by Kwame Nkrumah and comprised of representatives from Egypt, Ethiopia, Liberia, Libya, Morocco, Sudan, Tunisia, the Union of Peoples of Cameroon, and Ghana. And it said something, I want to know. It said the Union of South Africa was not invited. Now I don't know if that was.
Know why?
Yeah,
they had that thing going on.
Oh, apartheid.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. Yeah. So Garvey's role, for instance, in terms of his influence in Africa, what would you say? I mean, was his vision actually for Africa, and is the African Union and the African Union, are they? Would you say that they recognize the work of Garvey today?
I'm gonna take the long route. I'm gonna take it back to, from my perspective, 1804 with Haiti. It's important we start with Haiti because when they had that revolution, right? It was people coming from the mountains, people coming from the plantations. They went to the woods, the forests, and they had a traditional African, basically, oath of allegiance, where they set up the constitution. They set out they're going to be a new people. They're bringing all these tribes and chiefs and traditional leaders, wizards, scientists, the doctors. They brought them together and said, we're going to be a new people. And they launched a revolution. But what people don't know or they don't want to say is that the structure was an empire. Like you bring the different kingdoms and chiefs together, you get into different territories, that becomes an empire. And for a long time, or the first couple of years, they were trying to be an empire. They had the traditional chiefs, the wizard. They were when I say wizard, I mean like a social engineer, somebody who knows how to manipulate personalities and organize people, get away with like earth science, herbs, medicine. So they're well-rounded people who can organize communities, Black communities. So that they were an empire for the first couple of years, but then they got split and attacked by the Christian forces. 100 years later, you have the Berlin conferences where all the European kings meet and say they're going to basically break up Africa and stop fighting each other. Then you have the World War I, and that's when Garvey comes around.
Correction, brother. The European the European tribal wars. It's not. It's not. The
Yeah, that's the
Europeans
European
call it.
tribal war.
They call it a world war, but it's Europeans
Tribal
historic.
war.
Right. So
Tribal war. What?
no,
Okay, I like.
listen. I'm not. Who did I hear say that? No, I heard a Nigerian speaker that I interviewed a couple weeks ago correct me.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. But go
Yeah. Okay.
ahead.
Garvey comes around with European Tribal War One. He says, "Where's the presidents of Africa? Where are the kings of Africa?" And he sets out a constitution based on, strangely enough, well, not strangely enough, commonplace. It was Freemasonry. So this is important to note. A lot of people don't like to hear it, but the UNIACL is based off Freemasonry. The structure in the Constitution. He didn't have email from Africa. He didn't have the 400 Ashanti Constitution. He just copied and they wrote it down and tried to make it Africanized. But also, the Ku Klux Klan had their own constitution and book of laws based off Freemasonry back in the day. I think there's another organization that's pretty famous. I don't know, the Moorish Science Temple, Nation of Islam. But a lot of these groups, they're based off those constitutions from the Freemason Club, and a lot of people say that was imitating African kingdoms or Egypt. But Garvey creates this structure, right? And it had a potentate, so it had a traditional leader that was a king. So he was supposed to be the one who's creating all these societies, and he lays out what an African society is supposed to look like. For the first year that they had somebody filling that position of potentate, it was somebody named Prince Kojo from Dahomey, and that's the home of voodoo, where a lot of that's where the word voodoo comes from, Dahomey, Haiti. So he was connected. He was almost going to create a little Haiti all over USA if that really would have come to fruition, where they're writing out how a cultural society is supposed to look and how they're going to create their own tribal clubs and associations like African immigrants got now. But Marcus Garvey didn't. Basically, the guy got shamed for participating and he got deported. Or no. The prince, I think somehow he got disconnected from the society and a politician replaced him. And a politician didn't know how to create all the societies. So basically, the president general replaced the king or the potentate, and the UNIA has been breaking up ever since. But bringing it back to the African Union, they actually took some principles, or the African Organization of African Unity. A lot of politicians took Garvey's organizing tactics. They created their own political parties and vehicles where they could become the president of their country, and that's how you got African Liberation Day and African Union. But there's a misconception where a lot of people see the flags and see certain quotes like Nkrumah and Nnamdi Azikiwe, and Garvey connected. But Garvey actually said it himself that he wanted to turn basically Africa into a territory for Black people. The exact words are a Negro empire. So the same way, let's say the USA had manifest destiny for white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, he said Africa for the Africans, he was talking about the Negroes, and we're going to have a potentate and kings and princesses and dukes. So he was seeing Africa as a kingdom where Black people from the Americas could come back and basically control territories with the Zulus and the Ashantis and Prince Kojo of Dahomey. So that was a basic format, where if you have a branch of the UNIA in every village or every kingdom, they'll restructure it and have their own Berlin conferences. That was the basic format, and that's not what the African Union stands for. But there is still room for the UNIA as a sort of Black league where, there's an Arab league encroaching in Africa or moving in Africa. So we can have our own African league. So That's
Let me let
the
me let me chime in here. Many people speak about the role of Cuba in the Garvey movement. Is it did they have branches in Cuba than anywhere? If that's correct, if
yeah, man. Yeah, Cuba
is
had the
that true?
most.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Cuba.
Okay.
A lot of people say, they like to big up Che Guevara and or
Mm,
is he from Cuba or they like Fidel Castro and say they did all this thing for African black people, but there's a reason the UNIACL was most popular in Cuba and all the Caribbean countries. It's because they have
wow.
African traditionalists and secret societies there. They have
Mm,
African kings down there and traditional priests, and they said this is where we're going to be able to express our culture and connect to the real Africa. We didn't have presidents back then when they were
mm,
kidnapped. So when they had
mhm.
society created, they they have Igbo, they have Fawn, they have connection to the homie Yoruba still. So they said this is our ticket back back
Mm,
home. So
mhm.
and that was before anybody ever heard of Castro or Guevara.
Wow.
Garvey was connecting people back. So that's
Wow.
Cuba. They still have our headquarters in what they call Biafra or the Bantu Nigerians is
Mm,
connected to Cuba. They have a secret society, the Leopard Society or the Black
mm.
Panthers.
Okay.
Uh, like the traditional police or security force, they're connected to Cuba's secret societies. So
Mm-hmm.
Freemasonries and secret societies or secret policy, secret governments, all those guys are connected. And Cuba had the most branches outside of Louisiana, which is
Right.
connected to
Right.
Haiti. Connected to Haiti.
Ah.
So you
Wow.
see,
Good
so
point.
you see
That's a
the
good point.
connection.
Yeah. Yes.
So,
Yes. No.
but
That's
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah.
that's why. Actually, the group I was forgetting about that used the Freemasonry motto is the Boule. The Boule connects
Right.
to the president, where Garvey said, "Let's connect to the African kings and take advice from there." And that's why a lot of people, the majority of people who hate Garvey, that's the underlying issue. He's
Mm.
not trying to run for president.
Wow.
Retire George. He's trying to talk to the kings in Africa. So.
So yeah, a whole topic can be discussed about the origins of the Boule uh, and their role in attempting to actually for those who may not know, if you can just make a statement, I'll make just my peripheral view. My understanding was that the Boule, which means the servant to the king, um, uh, are basically the white power structure attempts to create a buffer class or a type of leadership class that would prevent or discourage individuals from connecting, for instance, to the Garvey movement, right? Uh, and
Mm.
now, and if you could, because I was just having a discussion, and interesting, once upon a time, I asked Chairman O'Malley Yeshitela, who's down in towards close to
Florida,
where.
St. Petersburg or something.
Right, right. I asked, it was just a general question. I didn't necessarily need a in-depth understanding, but it was during a question and answer period, and I asked him the role of W.E.B. Du Bois. And now, Du Bois, yeah, and I understand some people, they say, okay, in the long term context, for instance, that eventually began to recognize the role of Africa, and I don't know, comparative to his earlier writings, where it was theorized that he was concerned, for instance, about black people here in America. I mean, now, and not to get that much into into Du Bois theory, but it made me think about today we have groups, for instance, that they want to isolate black people in America. The
I
American
know.
slaves
Yeah, I
and the
know.
Foundation of Black Americans. So just add on, just add on, brother.
Brother, I like because I don't know if you remember back in the days, I used to do a lot of writing on the connections of words. You probably, I don't know,
Mm.
but the boule is like a Greek or Latin word, means like council. So actually, you know, boule is just like a gathering,
Mm-hmm.
and I got a lot of emblems. And I noticed this early on from Africa, where it says the word for gathering is the word for traditional government. So just people coming, in the plantation days, they used to break people up. Still do it now. Anytime they see one or two Negroes together, they break it up.
Mm-hmm.
But boule just means gathering. And if you go to, Congo, you see the word mbongi. If you go to Sierra Leone, some parts of Mali, you see the word poro. Uh, Nigeria, we have mbako, we have egbe,
Mm-hmm.
mbo. All these P and B words mean coming together. That's where when you come together, you make rules as a group. You control some land. You talk to other groups or
Mm-hmm.
governments. So what a boule is. Boule is just a group of black people coming together and talking to, uh, government officials about how to maintain their government.
Mm.
So in theory, you could people going over, to Gambia, Senegal. They could be going into the traditional houses and getting all those traditionalists to sign up for the Garvey movement and start pledging allegiance to Arabs and playing in Arab soccer cups and all the stuff they're doing.
Mm.
But some people going to Gambia and Senegal, I don't know what they're doing. I get worried sometimes. But in
Mm.
theory, you can make your own group and talk to other governments. And that's what Amos Wilson was about. Garvey, you know, Malcolm X tried to do it, but he was talking to the presidents, and that didn't end up so good.
Mm.
But because the presidents talk to
Wow.
other presidents, that's the whole boule. He should have been in the bush, the
Mm.
Africans, talking to them.
Wow. Wow.
But
No, that's interesting that you mentioned that because yeah, no, and you mentioned how many governments actually were targeting Malcolm. Now, you also recognize that Garvey, for instance, was targeted by the counterintelligence program, of course.
mhm,
The
created it for him.
Say again.
They created name. They launched or instituted the names like FBI for him. I think they said let's make this official because this guy's getting too big.
Oh, okay. Right,
Yeah.
right, right. Yeah.
But his whole thing was, from the launch, it was, we got a potentate. That's a monarch, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. I'm not in Freemasonry, but I know they have potentates. And a potentate, I looked it up. It says sovereign, ruler, monarch. You look in the Garvey
Mm-hmm.
history, you had dukes, you had princesses, knights. Um, then also, you read the Constitution, it said the rulers of this organization or government are going to be, you didn't say the presidents or the
Mm-hmm.
republic, the rulers. So black people typically don't have rulers unless you're talking about monarchies. So
Right. Well,
there was
let
a
me.
whole royal thing going on in royal courts. A
Yeah.
lot of stuff people would people would be astonished by now, but he was doing it in 1920 off the plantations.
Mm. Wow. Wow. So let me ask you this. So, what was Garvey's interpretation, for instance, of the Ethiopia? And I mentioned, let me find it here, that
Yep.
the, I believe. So wait a minute. The one of the conferences that they had, the African Union, no, the headquarters
Yep.
Is
I've been having issues with them, brother. All right. The truth, speak the truth. Shame whomever. But his interpretation going on was that, I'll go back to Haiti, right? When Haiti started their government, right, they had to take an oath and they had to summon the war gods or the spirit of war. And when you take an oath or when you do all that voodoo, that's what the modern world called hypnotism or trance. So you liable to you go into a zone. So they went into a zone on anything European. So after that, the world was on alert. This is what Africans do. Let's get all our Bibles and missionaries and send them with guns, Bibles and guns. So, so that's how you got the original name of Haiti. The whole island was San Dominico, which is a Christian name or Christian cult. And then Dominican Republic is the same thing. It's some Christian denomination or cult where they're just claiming territories for Christianity because they don't want that Haiti thing to pop off again. So Garvey knew that, they banned, they call it Igbo Juju or Obia. They banned that whole thing Igbos were doing down in Haiti and Jamaica. So he coming to the USA, he's saying, if I'm going to recruit Africans, I can't put it over the top, have a bloodbath out here. So he says, let me bring the Bible. He was raised Christian and he had some things to say about traditionalists anyway. So he said, let me just make the Bible black. And so he said, there's going to be, he read, I'm going to say this, he read the whole prophecy wrong. This whole kings coming out of Egypt or people getting, he read it wrong. He said, princes shall come out of Egypt. And he saw Haile Selassie getting crowned as some biblical prophecy. But if you actually read the context of that verse he was quoting, Chris Broussard quotes this too, but the context was that they're setting up a new religion where they destroy all the other African gods and they're setting up monotheism in Jerusalem. And all these servants and slaves are going to come out of Egypt, Black Egypt, and give them tribute. They're going to throw away all the religion and start giving them money. That's the context of princes shall come out of Egypt. And they calling people spearmen and basically bush people. That's the context. So that prophecy came to pass, as we can see. So yeah, that was a whole economic thing. But Ethiopia was the first real monarchy to really get set up, basically crushing what they call pagans. People like the Haitians of East Africa. That's all why Ethiopia was set up. And now you got people coming from the Red Sea and Saudi Arabia, mixing with the local blacks and setting up their dynasties, crushing so-called pagans. Let's call them East African Haitians. So that's what Ethiopia represents, and that's why they got the whole headquarters. To represent it's a base for, Arabian or Iranian philosophy in East Africa. They call it Iranism versus Kushism. You can look at Kushism with a K. So Kushite, there's a Kushite philosophy, ancient Black Kemet with the animism, and then they have Iranianism. So that's what Ethiopia represents, and that's why they got the headquarters. A lot of people being Christian, they don't know what they're supporting. But there's a whole economic principle to setting up a religion. You got a house, you're collecting tributes, you're making pilgrimages and spending money. So it's political, racial reason why Ethiopia gets the headquarters. And 100 years later, then they haven't established any Garvey branch. But they are starting to have, like they're having a bust there, a statue of Garvey lifted up there. But that's just the power of African Americans going over there and saying this needs to be happening. It's not something that the people themselves are moving at a pace. They got the whole mulatto dynamic going on there
You know,
for the whole country.
I was on something with some Jamaican, different Jamaican organizations like a few weeks ago, and they were talking about the bust and Dr. Julius, the grandson of Garvey, was on there, and they were
Hmm.
talking about this bust that's going to be dedicated. I mean, I can't recall the date. I don't know if it has happened yet, or well, I guess I would have.
Yeah, that's the statue I was talking about. I know about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're in a bad position because the whole system that was set up hundreds of years ago was designed. The whole state was set up basically to destroy the so-called pagans and be um, like part of the whole Christian empire. And so that was their whole thing. They're going to be trading with the outside world, while in
Mm-hmm.
Africa, and Christianity is going to be their whole basically economic front. But that's how they gather money. It's a banking system. Set up a statue or this book, and everybody lives this way and collect the money. And there's an
Mm,
economy. There's an economy behind everything you do. So
yeah. No. So yeah. No. It's interesting that you mentioned that because some years ago I used to bring Ashwa Kwesi to the Baltimore area, and he does tours to both Ethiopia and Egypt, but Kemet, shall I say, but he does a piece, The African Origins of Freemasonry as well. So, I just, tell people,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, tell people to check those out. But interesting, I was on Clubhouse like maybe 2 weeks ago, and they were talking about the Tigray area and what's going
yeah.
on. Many are referring to it as a genocide. So I called in on the Carl Nelson show, and the former president Senghor Baye, he was the ninth successor to Garvey. He was on, but he was on.
Wow.
Yeah, he was local, the local president of Division 330. And I asked objectively, I respect the elders, and I know that they have gone through a more detailed analysis of Garvey, right? Than myself. I mean, I've read a few books on him and watched documentaries, but I wasn't a member of the UNIA. I mean, actually, years ago, uh, Senghor, I did a radio show on Harambe, and I think I came on uh, before. Yeah, he came on at 8 o'clock. I came on at 7. Uh, so a lot of times I would hear a lot of his shows, and I'll kind of lead into, the intros. But my point was that as I'm hearing some different people, for instance, on Clubhouse, they're raising this Tigray issue as something that's rather serious. And so I asked I guess the Division 330 as well, Senghor. Now Senghor, he didn't necessarily answer it. I guess he allowed for the Division 330 president to answer, because no, and the reason that I did that because they were speaking about West Papua and New
Hmm.
and what's going on there, and so
Hmm.
and some were speaking about the Palestinian Israeli, what they call in in Jerusalem, and the Middle East, and I don't know where the Middle East is, but um, so I just kind of added on to this topic, and I
Hmm.
and the president sort of like he really didn't think that it was a real issue, like and I'm like, wow, so I mean, and I looked up some different clips on it, Like for
Mm-hmm.
instance, the Canadian prime minister is like asking or something, and I'm trying to
What?
piece things together because it's like you only can do but so much of your own
Yeah.
research, Google stuff, and I mean if you don't have nobody that you talking to on the ground, that's there that has a clear understanding of the politics, you're kind of weeding through things. So it was just interesting that he sort of, I'm not going to say undermined it, but he didn't think that it constituted right now what can be considered a genocide.
Yeah. Well, I can't speak on what he does, why he responded in that way. But I want to go back to like when Garvey first came to America. A. Philip Randolph, who's actually from Jacksonville, where I'm from, where he
Mm,
was raised here. He helped get him his audience in Harlem, and he got maybe like a couple hundred members, but then it broke up over politics. I guess somebody agitating that you need to pay attention to local politics and break up all this Africa stuff. So the first
mm,
time he got his organization split up, it was over local politics, American politics. That boule stuff. And then the second time he really had a big split was, I'd say, from what I've read, it was over religion, over Christianity. People wanted to have their own Orthodox African church, and I think it still exists, where everybody who comes into UNIA would have to have um, learn this particular branch of African Christianity that they came up with. So there
mm,
was a big split over that, and there were some
mm,
debates over Islam should be the mandatory religion for Black people
mm.
worldwide. Those were debates back in the day. So they split up, and
Even in the
over time,
UNIA,
yeah,
quick,
they had debates like
in,
how is this going to militarily benefit us? It was serious. Like, what are the benefits? Economics, military discipline for our members. Uh, so they're seeing how it could grow the movement, but
even
gain
even
territory.
you saying even with Islam as well?
Yeah, they debated. I think there was some Moorish brothers back in the day
Okay.
who debated it, or
Yes. Right.
different religions. There was even Jewish people back. There was a Haitian voodoo priest, or a guy who became a voodoo priest. There was all sorts. There was a dude from Dahomey, Voodoo Land. So there's all these different ideas being debated. As
Mm,
far it wasn't leave it alone. He said leave it alone in books, but there's debates. But going into the church splitting up, that eventually becomes, he made the prophecy that an Ethiopian emperor is going to
right.
come on down, or Egyptian emperor. He sees Haile Selassie, and he starts attaching his movement to, yeah, this is going to be basically our emperor, just like they had a potentate before. He started making moves to get into Ethiopia and team up with them. They're fighting Italians, and
Mm,
Haile Selassie. There's rumors out here he said he's not a Negro, and like
mm,
he's Semitic or whatever. So he's attaching himself to the whole Yemen, Queen of Sheba, Middle East,
mm,
Red Sea thing. So he's
mm,
distancing himself from the Garvey movement, but also naturally, if you think about it, Ethiopia is an artificial. All countries are artificial constructs, but the thing that made Ethiopia Ethiopia is that we're the Christian, non-racial, state, the universal religion in Africa. So
mm,
that's their whole religion. So if you come in with the Garvey movement, you got a black God, if it's Christian or black Muslim God or black voodoo, you're going to integrate with the surrounding areas and you're going to dissolve Ethiopia if you really unite all black people. So on that
mm,
level. So Ethiopia wouldn't
mm,
exist, maybe be a state. So they rejected Garvey. And to this day, there's no branch of the UNIA in Ethiopia where they're talking about, the East African community. Ethiopia isn't part of it, but South Sudan is. North Sudan isn't part of it, but South Sudan is part of Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda. So you can see in their political movements that they're not open to restructuring the state back then and now. So because they're the beacon for white supremacy through religion, and that you can tell them to their face. But
yeah, no, you make some good points.
But so there's might be reason, that's maybe a reason somebody might not want to touch on it, and especially a lot of UNI elders, they didn't have this kind of, they didn't have Google back in the day, or time to sit around and read all this stuff and get in detail. But a lot of people came in through Haile Selassie, and maybe it breaks their heart to see what's going on. But even the place, the Tigray region, I think that's where Axum was, where the whole Christian empire started, was in the Tigray region. So people over there blowing up each other, if that's true, from my observation, it looks like if that's true, they're like, they don't even care. It's not, they could destabilize the whole region. It's not about Christianity. It's not about anything anymore. It's all politics, like keeping the state together. But trying to get the UNIA in there and talk about, you're part of Kemet and Kush, and you're connected to this culture, and Egypt and Uganda and Nigeria. They're not trying to hear all that. Like, let me reach out to let me reach out to the United Nations, or, Reuters, or this, all this stuff. You see the Ethiopians on Twitter and Facebook. I was emailing a lot of them before this stuff popped off, but we need a beachhead in the Nile. We're all related. Let's start something in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa. We're all related. You got the whole African Union there. And they were basically played it off, and then all this killing started, and then they just jumped to Europeans with contacts that I had. But it's interesting when you look at the United Nations and the African Union peace process. It's basically in the Garvey model, where they basically bring community leaders. Every community is a different tribe. They just bring them together and talk it out. And they pay UN peacekeepers get paid $1 million to do what OGs in the streets do all day. So it's pretty stupid.
Wow.
That's their whole. You look at a UN peacekeeping movement. It just brings from community A to talk to community B about what links them together. And people go to college for that.
Right. Wow.
And that's what these guys in Ethiopia are trying to get UN peacekeepers to intervene, and they're putting a Marcus Garvey bust, but I don't know if action speaks louder than words, and a bust isn't really gonna. I don't know. I mean, the thing is, when you bring the UN, Marcus Garvey movement, a lot of people want the whole attention of the world to be on them. So it's not like you organize this area and bring them into consciousness, and we'll all meet in the middle at a mass convention. It's like, we need all the attention of the world on us. If you're not putting newspapers and cameras in our face, we don't really want to discuss it. So as a grassroots dude, I can reach out to people, but I don't have time to mobilizing cameras and mass media and still integrate Black power into it. But Ethiopia knows about the Garvey movement and the peacekeeping processes. So, but somehow they can bring it together.
Right. Yeah, no, that's really important.
Was any of the people from Ethiopia on the Black podcast or broadcast you had?
Yeah, it wasn't like mine directly. It was like what's called Clubhouse. It's like an app. Like a lot of different people come, from all over the world, and they go into different rooms and talk about different issues. So it was actually, some Ethiopians and Eritreans were on there as well. So, just really getting into that understanding, because many people believe that the Koreans are, sort of, a part attacking that area. So,
Oh, they're attacking the Eritrea.
other way
Yeah,
around. Some are saying that the Eritreans are attacking the
Tigray.
Tigray. Right. So, uh,
Man, they're all related too. It's crazy,
yeah,
closely related. You know, I've never seen a cultural symposium where they're saying they're laying out the culture that binds them. I
hmm
don't know. It's funny because the majority, if you look it on Wikipedia, the language groups they call themselves Cushitic, but you never really hear any government official talking about Kush, or they just say they're Cushitic, which I guess that means sort of Kushite, sort of black. I don't know what it is, but it's a
right.
frustrating topic. Um, One of Garvey's tactics back in the day was reverse psychology. Like if he really wants you to come along, he'll kind of berate you or say this group of people aren't doing A, B, and C, or they act like A, B, and C. And then the way that works is people who don't want to be, classified as lazy or traitors, they'll stand up and start building, say, no, we're not like that. So it was a reverse psychology. That's something that I use sometimes. It's not I hate,
Mm,
but sometimes if you don't give them attention and you focus attention elsewhere, people will start to build. And in the context of East Africa, the Nile, I've targeted South Sudan and Uganda as far as partners to try and do inter-community Garvey work and start branches.
mhm,
I
mm,
tried Ethiopia, but it was like too much effort living across the world trying to kind of pull people into it. But
mm,
I see a lot of potential in South Sudan and Uganda, especially with sports, trying to break the ice that way, introduce people to
mhm,
Garveyism. But
mm.
eventually, I think Ethiopia will come along. But that's the only solution. They have to integrate with the rest of Africa, Black Africa, as
Mm.
on a social level. And that's a big country, so it's not a small task. So hopefully we
Right,
start somewhere small and they come in, it goes viral. That's our hope. But
right, right.
it's a
Well,
big old country.
yeah, no, indeed. So yeah, no, so I appreciate you, brother, just coming on, Shan. We definitely been in communication about, much of these topics. So I wanted to, really document your experiences and, just challenges as well as the
Mhm.
successes that you have and the vision that you see moving forward, and particularly that we have, this World Africa Day. I'm hoping that more people will tune in to these broadcasts. I streamed on Facebook as well as my YouTube page, Raising Consciousness Capital. So I'll send you this after we're done. But you have anything, in closing that you feel that our original topic, of course, World Africa Day, Garvey, the life and legacy of Garvey, and the
Yeah, I
role
do.
of World Africa.
It probably, when it's all said and done, African Liberation Day, we're not really free. Um, Tying back to the whole ADOS and FBA movement, you mentioned it in brief, but uh, that came from, that was our movement. That was the Amos Wilson, Chancellor Williams movement, Malcolm X movement to create an organization, renaming diaspora, giving them new identities. That's all in the Blueprint for Black Power. That's in Malcolm X's speeches.
Yes,
Um,
sir. Yes, sir.
I know Asar Imhotep had his own book, but based off Amos Wilson's readings or
Who?
inspired. But
You said who
Asar
had
Imhotep, Asar Imhotep,
a
he's a
son?
scholar out of Philly. He has a
Son.
book called. He's in the Amun Ra squad.
Oh, yes. Okay, I saw. Okay. What's his book?
Yeah, the Bacala of North America, searching for a name of meaning for Black people in North America.
Okay.
But it's like trying to inspire a Congo USA mix culture and get people moving into a new identity that's unique. But that, you know, that ties into reparations. But you know, Congo people aren't really in position to basically. The African tradition is that everybody's related. You can trace who comes from who, and there's a call and response to the dialogue to get the culture really moving and get people organized in a militant fashion. That all African cultures were military economies and weren't dancing economies like some people think. But you know, it's supposed to be a military call and response. So I said, you know, based on my experience, you know, I'm Igbo, and there's a lot of Igbo people. There's a potential to create Igbo societies or cultural mixes and organizations that tie into reparations and new identities. My stance has always been you have to have a group of people, organization, a structure to receive any sort of payments. And then you have to have a plan as far as what you're going to do with the funds to maintain sovereignty. So it's not an integration stimulus package. But that's what African Liberation Day means. And going forward, to cut it, you know, short or simple, we're looking at IDs, we're looking at cultural symbols to tie diaspora into the CARICOM and South America. Brazil has a reparations movement that's pretty amazing. Guyana has some land that they're working with. So we're going to try and tie everything together with, you know, ID cards and symbols, and let the public try and see where it goes, make it go viral, or see if it catches on. But, you know, where I'm from in Nigeria, it's people don't know, but we tie into the Congo and, you know, the whole Bantu migration. We're tied to the Yoruba. We're like blended people. So, like, through our culture, we can liberate, you know, Congo and DRC and basically create a super state. South Africa would tie in. Then you have on the West Africa, you have the Yoruba, you have the Mali Empire, you have Senegambia and the Fulani people. So we could really take over West Africa and the whole Southern Africa through culture. But a lot of people call that region where I'm from Biafra, but it's really like the Bantu Nigerian area. That's the legal anthropological name that people should be promoting. And it's a blacker name. But that's the real name. It's like the Bantu Niger area. So we're trying to get the kings to tie into Garveyism and install it in that Nigeria region, then expand to Yoruba land and Senegambia. But as far as liberation, we're looking at the cultures in Africa, and we're saying Black people here in the diaspora would be more flexible and more integrated into Garveyism through our area or the Biafra region. So that's what we're working on. And you got a branch. Hopefully we could get you a shirt, an ID, and people start organizing at that cultural level. That's what we got planned in Jacksonville. We're trying to work with Black Panthers down here and make things more reparations oriented and see where we could go. Work in multiple continents. But we're trying to do it laid back and make it natural, and we'll see if that leads to liberation that people are labeling the Liberation Day. But that's what we got planned.
Wow, that's powerful, brother. I'm sorry, you made me think of something. Are you familiar with Prince Justice?
And from Yoruba land, yeah.
Yeah, he wrote The Evolution, the Revolution.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
Okay. So he's from Yoruba. He's from Yoruba, and you're from where? You're from Igbo.
Igbo land, yeah. I'm from Mbise, the 5 United States or United Clans.
Okay.
So
okay. All right.
No, I talked to him about the plan. I talked to that brother about the plan. His enthusiasm was waning.
Yeah, I never met. I don't think I even interviewed him. I just read his book. It's I read it. It's good, some good references in there. Just some uh, things to get. Like the languages. And the demographics, the numbers. Sometimes we need to know like how many. Which countries are speaking English, for instance, which ones are speaking French, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll for those that may not that's on the outside, it's like you gotta sort of know like where you can functionally work at. Like I was having a conversation. Not you. I don't think I was talking to you, but I was asking. No, someone mentioned something about Sierra Leone, and for some reason, I asked, was that a French speaking country? But it just didn't pop in my mind. Like, so I don't have like a off the top of my head knowing like country, you know what I'm saying? So, sometimes I gotta go back and, have different, reference materials to know because it's like I'm only working on in English, mostly English speaking countries, at that general concern about those.
As far as major cultures in Yoruba is probably the biggest culture.
Right.
Their thing is they're a monarchy or a series of monarchies. So they got a real complex culture. And then if you set it up over here, you probably eventually create your own monarchy. And then people will be arguing who's bigger, who's better.
Wow.
So that's led to some conflicts in the past, but there's a lot of ties there. People are still trying to figure that out.
Wow.
Then you have the Senegambia. Senegal and Gambia are actually basically a tribe. A lot of people don't know that, and they get away with a lot of slick political stuff. People don't know that, but Senegal and Gambia is a big culture. It's a tribe basically. They're trying to become one country sometimes. They don't really promote their kingdoms, or they're not trying to be an empire. We haven't had success building UNIA there. They got Muslim Boule basically. They call them Morids. Basically, what they're doing, they got an Arab Boule, and it's ridiculous. But they got a whole Muslim Brotherhood going down there, and people are going to Gambia and calling it the Smiling Coast. They're not going to be smiling in 50 years. I'll tell you that. Because Arabs are moving south, and they're already playing Arab Cups with Senegal, lifting the trophy. They're the Arab champions. So people investing in Senegambia right now. They don't know what's going on, but that's one of the bigger cultures. Then you have the Mali Empire, the Mande people. They're in Sierra Leone, Liberia, but they're just so spread out that you really have to apply pressure, and if you want to get these cultures together to like form a unified front. But as far as contiguous area to try and form a state or a power base for Garveyism, it's Yoruba land. If you get their kings to accept it, a lot of people don't accept it. The UNIA, but we're going to try and push it from Igbo land where they're more split up and easier to basically try to get them to accept it and spread it out. And if we get it there, the other bigger cultures in Africa will start to key in and say, it's all economics.
Wow.
Beyond, it's economics. So we're going to tie in, but I want to say a lot of people are dancing and cooking and saying this is how you build a culture. But all these, if you study the language, these are military settlements and empires, and we're not trying to kill each other, but there has to be some discipline to what you call a culture, especially in this climate.
Wow.
It's
wow.
It's a KKK world.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate your time, brother. So we'll do something again. Maybe talk a little bit more, about Nigeria and the politics. I want to do a particular. So help me to understand, these three different groups that's going on. We need to separate. Somebody told me that, like,
man. It didn't work the first time because they was doing the Tigray, issue. They're trying to go to the United Nations, and Cracker 1, Civilization Cracker 2 didn't help. Then option Z, go to the black people in America. They're going to stump for us.
Wow.
So if we're going to separate or restructure Africa, you know, we got a lot of territory up north that we could, we got a lot of expansion we could do. We got to come together. I like the UNIA because it has certain tenets of a tribe, or that's where we can position it as a cultural group, where it says you have to marry this person to be a lead if you want to be a leader. You know, that disqualifies some people that get celebrated, like in Nkrumah. But you got to marry a certain person.
What did he do?
He married a non-black person. He wouldn't have been qualified as a leader if you read the UNIA Constitution.
Right. Yes.
So there's marriage laws. There's a written constitution. There's certain things I like in it that where you can actually. I was actually able to get myself on like an African Union panel, or with a panel with a United Nations member, to someone who works with the African Union, and I presented all this as a cultural movement, and people were clapping and saying, "Oh, that makes sense." So like, you know, I want to tell all my Nigerians, you can use your 419 powers for good if you put your brain in the right place. But we're working on restructuring Africa. That whole Biafra region is actually like the Bantu Niger area. We have like people from Congo. Like we got the Pygmy Dwarf, the Batwa in Nigeria. From people that put two and two together. But, you know, we're going to break down the borders and make it for Garveyism. But, you know, the Yoruba are going to come along. Senegal, Gambia, they're going to come along. And we're gonna make some change with all that slavery they got going on.
Right.
Citizenship, IDs, passports, that's what we want to do. So we'll stay in touch from south to north.
Right. All right, my brother. So let's, if anybody to reach you or, find you anywhere, where would they look at to assess and read some of your work, or see you more, or contact you?
I have a Facebook. It's just my name, Confidence, like the word, and then my middle name, Chizoro, CHIZOROOKEKE. I'm actually I play basketball semi-pro, so I try to. A lot of my time is trying to relax and recover.
Okay.
So my hope is that by the time, and within a week time or so, we start going, I'll start having leadership who could repeat this stuff and are actually diaspora and qualified for reparations, and they'll be organizing. But I'll try and stay on a consultant basis as long as it's needed. But the success of a movement is when the leader is not there, or the person who dreamt it, and it still goes on. So
right. All right, my brother. So, brother, and BB488. So thank you for your time. All right.
BB488. Peace.
Peace and blessings, brother. Uhuru.
Great things. Uhuru.